Welcome tonight's guest, shall we? He's so tough, he flosses with piano wire. Former Florida Congressman Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Colonel West, you got Star Trek cast members, producers, and writers. You have the UN, you have USA Today going after you. Isn't this a good sign?
Well, you know, I have always kind of been privy to the Romulans and the, what was the other guys, the Klingons.
Yes.
You know, they're very warlike.
Yes.
But, you know, maybe, you know, we can resurrect Spock and he can do the Vulcan mind mail, and that can help Donald Trump for the next debate. But I think without a doubt he needs to get some of those breathe right strips, you know, for the next debate, and that'll help him with the whole sniffing thing. But, you know, it's amazing to me with all the things that are going on in the country right now. And we're sitting up talking about some, I don't know, some Miss Universe 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, 20 years ago, I was running around getting shot at by bad guys. I mean, I think that's a little bit more important. But, you know, I think Trump needs to, instead of worrying about the art of the deal, he should read Sun Tzu's Art of War. Because he needs to understand the strategic environment. He needs to understand how you take, you know, an opposition's perceived strength and you turn it against them. Because there's no doubt about it that when he, after those first 30-some-odd minutes of that debate, they said, okay, we're going to change the direction of this debate. We're going to get him off the game. And he fell for it. And he continues to fall for it.
Yeah, he can't let it go, can he?
He can't let it go.
He can't, Allen, by accident.
But this is where I want to take it back to. If I had been up there on that stage and Hillary Clinton brought up something from 20 years ago, I said, you know, Miss Clinton, you know, 20 years ago in State of the Union address, your husband said the era of big government was over. Do you guys talk to each other? I mean, you got to shift it.
You know, put that on record that is a frightening thought. All right, I have a theory that Pence is going to have to spend most of his time defending Trump.
Well, yeah, that's going to be the entire objective, and I think that Mike Pence has to know that going in. And we recently saw he was asked, you know, do you disavow David Duke and having a relationship with Donald Trump? So it's going to be that kind of, you know, circular attack of Trump through Pence. And if you understand that going in, you should be prepared. But Professor Dershowitz is absolutely correct. When you have two candidates at 69 and 70 right now, you know, for them to go on past a first term, absolutely, that's a big deal. And we see the stress of the office. So these guys in 4 years could end up being your president. It's going to be interesting because it's a different format. It's a town hall format. So it'll depend on what the people there, the type of questions that they ask. And I think that will be a good test to see what's really on the minds of the American people.
Also, they're both very popular. I mean, Tim Kaine was an extremely popular governor and senator. Pence was very popular. And they're both serving as vice president candidate for candidates who aren't so popular. So
you know, what do you think, Colonel?
You know, I grew up in the inner city in Atlanta, Georgia, and just earlier this week I was in St. Louis, who has, you know, incredibly become one of the most violent cities. I think that we have to stop using this word profile, because in the military, when we were in the combat zone, it's called trend analysis. We didn't go chasing after leads that didn't take you, you know, toward the bad guys. I didn't go looking after. I mean, it's very simple. So we do that all the time, and I think that right now we have such an environment out there that are putting our police officers, law enforcement officers, you know, on their heels. And we're giving the advantage to criminal elements and to gangs. There are so many good people there in these neighborhoods and communities. They want to feel safe. You know, the person that brought the lawsuit against the gun law in Chicago was an elderly black man who wanted to be safe in his home. He just wanted a shotgun. And so if we're not going to allow people to do that in many of these inner cities, then we need to have that cooperation with the police.
You know, you're right about one thing. Profiling is a good thing. That is, you want to get as much as you can about an individual. Find out where he traveled, find out who his associates are, look at his criminal record. You create a profile. That's just sensible. But to say that all black people should be stopped, that's racism.
But you have to, you know, I grew up, and like I said, never got stopped. Because I didn't give anyone a reason to stop.
But look, a lot of policemen would look at you and say, you're probable cause. You are probable cause. Professor? That's what a lot of policemen would say.
I got a college degree, and
I understand that.
But they wouldn't say that about you. To that point, the media is just as bad as the criminal element, because whenever something happens, they paint a picture of the person who's doing wrong as this innocent human being who was attacked horribly by the evil police department. And then, hold on, and then 2 weeks later, his wife reports him for being a felon, reports him for threatening her with a gun. And he has a rap sheet a mile long, but all we saw was selfies of him on his Facebook page holding a puppy and the evil police coming to get him, and that just creates, and no one waits for the next story.
Okay, but in New York, stop and frisk was being abused in New York. That's why it wasn't about it. What did Trump say? And against the police judge? No, they were using a way. They were stopping people because they looked nervous or they had their hands in their pockets. You can't do that. That is unconstitutional.
But they weren't
So it was
stopping. They
more
weren't
news
stopping
stories
you
than
and me
that.
because we look nervous.
I understand.
Right.
Thank God, I would never get anywhere. Yeah.
Cat's this big with
Right,
a bandana on. She had a gun.
And think about this.
Hey, I got some applause.
I would have never thought, having been in Iraq and Afghanistan, that we would have improvised explosive devices on the streets of New York or
Yeah.
New Jersey. And it's here.
And worry that it could happen in the run-up to the election because Al-Qaeda and Russia both would like to influence the outcome of this election. I want everybody out there to make an oath. If there is a terrorist attack, God forbid, you will not change your vote. Because if you change your vote as a result of a terrorist attack, there'll be more terrorist attacks in the run-up to every single election.
I didn't look at it that way, and that's a great point to end the segment on, but that's very smart. I don't know if it's possible, though.
Let's just add more police and more military.
What you've wanted to say all show, but haven't had the chance to say, so here's your chance to say it. Right now.
Colonel West.
Follow us at the National Center for Policy Analysis, ncpa.org. We have serious discussions about policy, and if we keep living in fantasy world, we're going to lose the real world.
Excellent. Love your website, too. All right.